Hello everyone, this is CounterYolo, bringing you another video talking about Star Trek Online. And in today's video, I'm going to go over the Fek'ihri Sword Warship, because the stats were just released today. Of course, the stats still may change, but assuming the stats stay the same, I'll go over how this warship compares with other starships inside the game. So, because I'm not like a DPS type of captain inside the game, and I don't cover escorts too often inside the game, I'm going to give a really brief overview on how the escort classes and subclasses work inside the game statistically, and then I'll go over how this new warship is going to compare versus a lot of the other comparable ones inside the game. Feel free to see the time links in the description for all this stuff. We'll go ahead and get started, but for first off, saying that again, I'm not an escort captain. I'm a tank captain. As thus, my opinions will be extremely skewed versus the main portion of the player base that will actually want to actually play and fly this type of starship inside the game. So, with that all said, with the escort class, we have three general categories. We have escorts, we have raiders, and we have destroyers. There also are some weird variants like raptors for KDF that have cloaks, scout ships, which is the science variant of raiders. And then we have warships, which are destroyers, except that they have a standard weapon instead of an experimental weapon, like what every single other escort in the escort class has for one of their weapon slots. Outside of that, generally escorts are fairly well-rounded. Raiders are easier to destroy, but they have raider flanking, so they're a lot more offensive and better in groups. And destroyers and warships are your tankier versions of your escorts overall. To kind of like talk about it generally, like not looking at the stats, balanced with 8 weapons, weaker with 7, and stronger with 8, but a lower turn rate, impulse, and inertia rating. Impulse and inertia is much more important for the escort class versus all the other classes inside the game. That's also why in most of my stats videos for comparisons, I have not talked about impulse and inertia, because for tank captains, it doesn't really matter to us, but for everyone else, it does to an extent. You want to play escorts and raptors if you like a Federation type of role play for doing DPS. They have a lot more starship selections overall and a lot more customizations options, especially with the Rising Corvette. For raiders, if you want to be a DPS captain as a Klingon captain, choosing battle cruisers or choosing raiders, like your birds of prey, is going to be the path for you. Also, because the birds of prey all have battle cloaks. They're also some of the best stuff for PvP. If you have a coordinated group of 5 that you're in, they have very strong group strength, being able to have 5 people decloaking all at once and bursting someone down and then cloaking again and getting out of harm's way. It's a very offensive and very oppressive strategy. Destroyers and warships, on the other hand, it's very strong for solo play. Very good for survivability, especially if you're someone who wants to play a captain with dual heavy cannons. Every single one of the destroyers and warships inside the game, along with all the other escorts, are able to use dual heavy cannons. Outside of these ships, you have to look at the descriptions of ships really carefully to see if they can equip dual heavy cannons on their ships. Dual heavy cannons, or DHCs, have the most damage output from their weapons, which is why a lot of your DPS captains really like these a lot. However, if you use it on a battle cruiser, you're going to need to have other stuff on your ship to account for being able to make sure that you keep enemies inside the really narrow firing arc. If you're using a destroyer warship, you don't really have to worry about that. As long as you have decent piloting, you should be okay. But anyway, that's just my little 2 cents for that. So now let's get into the real comparisons here. So with our new warship, here's the stats that we have here. It's a 1.1 hull and 1.0 shield ratio, which isn't unheard of for escorts. It has a 4/4 weapon layout with a 16 turn rate. You'll see here that's actually pretty high, with a 0.2 impulse rating and an inertia rating of 60. Compared to the other warships that have been released in the past, both of them had a 0.18 and a lower inertia rating, along with a significantly lower turn rating. But their stats are a little bit higher to kind of compensate for that. The Fek'ihri warship was really weird in that it had 6 bridge officer seats versus the 5 or 4 that most other ships have inside the game. So that was not really the one really good to compare. However, if you compare this ship to the Breen warship from 2 years ago, the bridge offer seating is very, very close to the exact same. There's a different specialist seat, and the Ensign Universal is now an Ensign Tactical, but considering that it's 5 tactical versus 4, it's not completely weird that that's the route that they're telling you that you should be going for this bridge offer seating. Overall, when you compare it to this things, like it's a slightly less tanky ship with a lot more offensive capability. However, when you compare this versus the event escorts that have been released, you actually start looking at the stats, and in my opinion, this guy aligns very well with the heavy escort that was released last summer. Not this year's summer, but in summer 2017. Similar bridge offer seating as well. You just switch the commander and lieutenant of engineering and science around. Special seats even the same, it's just there's a different specialist type of seating there. Same impulse, same inertia, very similar turn rate, and this guy has slightly higher hull, but not by much. So the Raider is its own weird thing. Raiders have always been weird. So, but this was at least a free one that was given out last winter. That had a really strong trait on it. The trait for this ship is interesting. For a lot of your free-to-play players, it's definitely something to think about. But definitely for the high end, you would not consider this trait on this new ship. When we talk about T5U starships, my two favorite when it comes to the escort category is the Undine Bio Warship off of the Exchange. For a lot of your budget end builds for escorts, I highly recommend getting this ship. It has decent ratios for hull and shields, decent turn rate, pretty good impulse, just like this ship. It's pretty fast. And if you actually look at the bridge offer seating, all of this ship is different versus this one is that it doesn't have that 5th slot for an ensign ability. But it still has 5 tactical. It's within that 15 million range for energy credits off the exchange, so it's very manageable to get. However, my passion for escorts really would come from the Ricine Corvette. Despite the fact that it has really low hull and shield ratios, the unshown stat here is that this ship gets additional defense based upon its impulse speed. And the fact that this ship is the fastest ship in the entire game. It has the highest impulse speed, highest inertia rating, a very high turn rating as well, considering all of that. And the fact that it can get up to an additional 15% defense based upon its impulse speed. And you've got a console which basically stops enemies from chasing you. This is, in my opinion, the best ship if you're going to be an escort tank inside the game. I even have a build video on this channel talking about this ship and how to potentially build on it, along with the specializations and things to think about. It's a really old ship, so for those of you that are relatively new to the game, the only way to get this one is through a ultra rare drop from Phoenix Lockbox. But of the T5U stuff in there, this one, in my opinion, is the strongest one for escorts. Alright, so let's get into the C-Store stuff. Unfortunately, there's only one C-Store warship or destroyer that you don't need to get the Fleet Tier 6 upgrade for. And that's the Gemini Vanguard warship. This one you still have to get Tier 6 mastery for any other faction besides Gemini to fly it, but overall this is a very well-balanced warship. Slightly slower impulse and inertia speed. But it's a fairly decently balanced ship. I'm assuming that you're going to be an offensive player, which if you're using a warship or destroyer, you probably will be anyway. It is fairly slow, but it does have a 5.3 weapon layout, so there is that going for it. 3,000 Zen off the exchange, if this is something that you're thinking about. When it comes to fleet destroyers, the two that come to mind for me anyway, the Fleet Tier 6 destroyers, by the way, are ones that you need to get a fleet military high enough, and then you use fleet modules to get. The two that come to mind to me is the Fleet Recon Destroyer, a fairly new one that came out just a few months ago, as well as the Fleet Manticore Heavy Destroyer, and also the other variants for the other factions as well. This is the lifetime starship available to you if you have a lifetime subscription. If you're a DPS captain, this is actually a decent ship. It's not really fully worth the lifetime price if all you're going for is just the ship. But if you want the other perks alongside the lifetime membership, then it might be worth it overall for you. It has a pretty high impulse speed, even faster than this ship. Turn rate a little bit lower, but it's got pretty good hull considering that its shield ratio is very close to it. Fleet Recon Destroyer has a really high shield ratio for a really low hull ratio. Technically, with its seating, you could try to actually go with a science build with this thing if you really wanted to. I wouldn't recommend it, but you could technically. A little bit lower impulse, still good in inertia as well. All these have 5 tactical, which is what you want in destroyers and warships overall, typically. Now for Lockbox, these are the 2 ones that stuck out to me from Lockbox. The Crown Imperial Warship is one of the more well-balanced ones in the game, in my opinion. Pretty decent bridge after seating. It is a little bit older, so it's not going to get as much love as other things. Fairly similar to this one, except that you have a Lieutenant Tactical and Incident Engineering instead of Lieutenant Engineering and Ensign Tactical, but of course this one is potentially free and you're able to get it fairly easily. Well, assuming that you have the amount of days to be able to do the little run for the stuff to get the ship. Tall Adapted Destroyer has a decently good hull and shield ratio. The big thing hurting this ship actually is the fact that it has a really big ship profile. I've mentioned that before, but whenever you have a really big ship profile, you actually have less range than you think that you do, especially when it comes to a lot of your science abilities. This is actually a really good science destroyer / cruiser, whatever you want to call it. It has a really, really low turn rate though, so that is a very big turnoff for me personally. For lobby starships, I think this might be the last one here. We start comparing. It actually, the Fek'ihri Warship is actually comparable a lot to this guy. We actually start looking at some of the comparisons here too. 1.1 hull, 1.05 shields here for 1.0. Close to same turn rate, as well as inertia, same impulse. This guy has an experimental weapon instead of just a regular extra weapon. Pure tactical, like basically everything on this video has, with the temporary tactical as well, which is with the temper operative. This one's also very good for science. This is from the mirror universe. Unfortunately, for some reason, the mirror universe we don't have a cruiser yet. I'll get into that in the next couple slides, but yeah, this is a very good ship. This one's decently comparable if you're going for an offensive type build. Husnight Warship is also pretty good as well. It's got a much slower turn rate for a slightly higher ratios for the hull. And yeah, you can easily use this for a torpedo build as well if you so chose. 900 lobby for each one of these, or you can also get them off of the exchange too. Because they're priced as lobby, the lobby ships typically have a much stabler price on the exchange versus other ships on the exchange, which has a much variable rate. To close off this video, why do we have a winter KDF starship? Because, by the way, there is a Karfi battle carrier that Klingon ships or Klingon captains are able to get, and so some Klingon captains are like, "Why are you releasing a KDF ship for everyone?" Well, we've already kind of set the precedent before in that last year's anniversary event. We got the Bajoran Interceptor, which some people may say it's not technically a Federation ship, but also technically the Vulcan ships from the Sea Star also aren't Federation ships because those ships existed prior to the Federation. But for all intents and purposes, they're Federation ships, just like the Bajoran ship is a Federation ship because the Bajorans are now part of the United Federation of Planets. The Fek'ihri are kind of like a branch-off / corrupted version of Klingons, as we learned from the Dominion arc, the more recent one in the Gamma Quadrant, that the Dominion kind of messed with. So this ship is a Klingon ship. But I think the big reason here is just because KDF ships sell really poorly. The majority of the player base is either Federation captains or Federation-aligned Romulan captains, which those captains, for the most part, can buy Federation ships. It's just a very particular set of lobby and exchange ships that Romulan captains cannot get. Outside of those very specific ships, Romulan captains are able to use all the rest of the ships that Federation captains can as well. And so it's really hard to get some like Klingon exclusive ships that actually sell well enough for Cryptic to actually want to invest in the time to make good ships for them. But hey, if we can make a Klingon ship-esque type of thing that everyone can use, then it's worth our time to actually make it. And that's where a lot of these ships kind of come in. For the past couple of years, like the reason why we got Vorgon ships each year from Summer was because, well, they made those designs before, but CBS said no to them, so they had to redesign the ships, and they didn't want to waste the time with it, so they released a ship each year to players as free ships that if you want to use them, you can. The big reason, in my opinion, though, outside these two, is this one. This can help bridge the gap and give Cryptic an excuse to have Tier 6 Mirror Universe Federation cruisers. Unfortunately for the Mirror Universe right now, we don't have any Tier 6 Mirror Universe cruisers inside the game right now. We have Mirror Universe, what were they called? Like temporal ships and Mirror Universe like destroyers. The only Mirror Universe cruiser that's technically Tier 6 that we have is the Mirror Universe Guardian Cruiser, which you had to like pay like $10 to a certain charity or whatever in order to be able to get it. And this isn't even a fleet Tier 6 thing, so it's not even as strong as the other like Tier 6 stuff inside the game either. What I'm really hoping is that with the Fek'ihri ship, is that we're able to hopefully have our anniversary ship be a Mirror Universe Federation starship. It doesn't necessarily have to be the ISS Enterprise, but it'd be really cool if it was. I'm going to basically guarantee you that, or give you a really strong guess, that whatever ship that Captain Killy flies is a ship that you're going to be able to earn from the anniversary event. So whatever ship she flies, I'm pretty sure that's going to be the ship that we're going to be able to earn and get. Whether we actually get to, work with her or have to fight against her, I'm not really sure about that. I'd also recommend the Cryptic, if they're listening to this, to give us a C-store version of the Enterprise, of the Discovery Enterprise in some fashion in the C-store, just because we already have a regular lockbox Enterprise from the Kelvin timeline. We have the Infinity lockbox TOS/TMP Enterprise. So something in the C-store reminiscent of an Enterprise from the C-store should be really good. I mean, sure, we have the Enterprise C right now and Enterprise D, but this Enterprise in some fashion from the C-store should be a very good thing for them to do at some point, whether it's like this year, next year, whatever. Anyway, those are my couple of cents about the new ship. I will still have my science tanking video coming out on Thursday, so don't fret about that. This is just a bonus video this week because we got the at least 10 tentative stats for our new winter starship. Anyway, thank you all for watching and enjoy the rest of your day.